The starship Luminescence hung silently against the backdrop of Earth's orbital space, its crystalline hull designed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding darkness. Captain Zara of the Luminate Explorers studied the planet below with a mixture of professional detachment and growing curiosity. Her species had mapped thousands of developing worlds, but something about this blue-green sphere felt different. Initial scans had been unremarkable. A single planetary civilization, technological but not yet spacefaring, confined to one solar system. The Galactic Network's standard protocol suggested a centuries-long observation period before any direct contact, but today was anything but standard. The research facility glinted like a silver spider web against the Earth's curved horizon. Its design was functional, almost brutalist in its simplicity. Nothing like the ornate, organic structures of Lumina engineering. What caught Zora's attention was the activity inside the complex. Her ship's advanced sensors picked up a live experiment in progress. A team of humans were conducting what appeared to be an impossible test. At the center of a sterile white laboratory, a group of researchers surrounded a complex neural interface system that looked more like a mechanical nightmare than a scientific instrument. "Zoom in," Zora commanded her primary science officer, a translucent being named Krell. The holographic display sharpened, revealing extraordinary details. A human researcher, a woman with intense dark eyes and hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, was preparing herself for something that would have been considered pure madness by any other species in the Galactic Network. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved with deliberate precision. She was attaching a series of quantum resonance probes directly to her own neural cortex. No protective barriers, no remote testing, no preliminary animal trials, just pure, unfiltered human determination. Krell's form rippled with scientific excitement and ethical concern. "They're going to damage their neural pathways," he observed, his translucent body shifting colors in agitation. Zara raised a hand, silencing him. "Watch." The probes connected. Most biological systems would have immediately suffered catastrophic neural collapse. Instead, Dr. Rodriguez's brain began to do something unprecedented. It was adapting. The quantum interfaces didn't just connect, they merged. Her neural pathways were actively restructuring themselves, creating new connections faster than the most advanced Lumina supercomputers could process. "Impossible," Krell whispered. But it was happening. The human researcher was treating her own brain like a dynamic system to be optimized, not a fragile organ to be protected. With each passing second, she was learning, adapting, expanding her cognitive capabilities in real time. The laboratory team monitored her progress with a combination of scientific excitement and personal investment that was entirely foreign to most galactic research cultures. They weren't distant observers. They were active participants in their own evolutionary process. "Data transfer efficiency?" Zara asked. Krell's sensors worked furiously, 300% above projected maximum. "The neural plasticity is unprecedented." Outside the laboratory windows, Earth continued its quiet rotation. Cities glowed like circuit boards, a testament to a species that seemed to view technology not as a tool, but as an extension of their own potential. Satellites drifted overhead, each one a small monument to human ingenuity. Dr. Rodriguez completed her test. Instead of showing signs of stress or damage, she began writing complex quantum algorithmic sequences with her neural interface. Calculations that would have taken Lumina researchers decades were being generated in minutes. Zara leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic display. This was more than a scientific breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of biological potential. "Prepare a preliminary report," she told Krell. "But do not, under any circumstances, initiate standard first contact protocols. These humans are not ready to be approached. They are something else entirely." As the luminescence maintained its silent vigil, the laboratory on Earth continued its work. Unaware of the extraterrestrial observers, humanity pushed forward, one impossible experiment at a time. The underground training facility stretched beneath the Nevada desert like a buried metropolis of human potential. Fluorescent lights cast a clinical glow over rows of specialized chambers, each designed to push the boundaries of human physiological endurance beyond what any other species would consider possible. Dr. Marcus Chen reviewed the latest batch of volunteer candidates. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were pioneers, each one willing to transform their body into a living laboratory of human capability. The Galactic Research Council's intercepted files would never capture the true essence of what happened here. Preparation sequence begins in 10 minutes, he announced to the assembled group. 12 candidates stood in perfect formation. They represented a cross-section of human diversity, different ages, backgrounds, body types. What united them was an unbreakable spirit of exploration and a willingness to redefine human limitations. The first chamber tested gravitational adaptation. Where most species would require years of incremental exposure, these humans would attempt to condition their bodies to extreme gravitational variations in a single session. Specialized neural interfaces would map every cellular response, every microscopic change. Senior researcher Elena Rodriguez monitored the initial readings. Her earlier quantum neural experiments had opened doors to understanding human adaptability, and this program was the next logical step. The candidates entered individual containment units. Massive gravitational generators hummed to life, creating pressure equivalent to the core of a neutron star. Any other biological system would be instantly crushed. The human volunteers began to change. Cellular structures realigned. Bone density increased. Muscle fibers reconfigured themselves in real time. What should have been a fable experience became a moment of biological transformation. In the observation room, holographic displays tracked each candidate's physiological response. The data was beyond comprehension. Their bodies weren't just surviving. They were actively learning, adapting, growing stronger with each moment of extreme stress. Gravitational stress at 275% baseline, a computer voice announced. Most of the candidates showed elevated heart rates but remained conscious. 2 actually began performing complex mathematical calculations using neural interfaces, demonstrating that mental acuity could be maintained under conditions that would destroy most biological systems. The Galactic Research Council's intercepted files could never capture the human spirit evident in this moment. These weren't just test subjects. They were explorers of human potential, treating their bodies as dynamic systems to be optimized and expanded. The second chamber tested environmental adaptation. Candidates would be exposed to rapid temperature and pressure changes that mimicked multiple planetary environments. Extreme cold transitioned to intense heat. Atmospheric pressure fluctuated wildly. Dr. Chen watched as the human body revealed its most remarkable characteristic: resilience through transformation. Metabolic reconfiguration detected, the system reported. Candidates' bodies were generating new cellular structures, creating adaptive mechanisms in real time. Their skin changed texture. Respiratory systems modified themselves. Blood chemistry adjusted to maintain optimal function. One candidate, a former mountain rescue specialist, began demonstrating enhanced thermal regulation. Her body was generating its own internal heat management system, something that would take most species generations of genetic engineering to achieve. The observation team from the Galactic Research Council would have been horrified. This wasn't just training. This was a fundamental reimagining of biological potential. As the session concluded, the candidates emerged transformed. Medical scans showed increased neural connectivity, enhanced cellular regeneration, and physiological adaptations that defied previous understanding of human biology. Preliminary results. Dr. Rodriguez asked. Dr. Chen's report was succinct. Complete success. Adaptation rate 237% above previous projections. Cellular regeneration shows exponential improvement. The Human Potential Project wasn't just a military training program. It was a living experiment in evolution, a testament to humanity's ability to view biological limitations as mere suggestions rather than absolute boundaries. Outside, the Nevada desert continued its timeless vigil. Beneath the surface, humanity was rewriting the rules of biological potential, one impossible experiment at a time. The isolation chamber hummed with a soft, almost imperceptible energy. Marcus Chen sat perfectly still, electrodes carefully positioned across his scalp and neural pathways. On the other side of the reinforced glass, a team of Lumina researchers prepared their most advanced telepathic communication array. Captain Zara watched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing apprehension. Her species had perfected telepathic communication millennia ago, using it as a primary method of information transfer and psychological exploration. The humans were about to become the first species to actively engage with their technique as a two-way learning experience. Initiating first-stage neural probe, announced Krell, the translucent lead researcher. Most biological systems would have immediately buckled under the intense neural pressure. The Lumina telepathic technique was designed to be comprehensive, a complete mapping of cognitive pathways, emotional landscapes, and subconscious structures. It was meant to be an invasive scan, not a conversation. Marcus took a deep breath. The neural probe began. What happened next defied everything the Lumina researchers understood about psychological communication. Instead of collapsing or resisting, Marcus's mind did something unprecedented. It began to analyze the telepathic probe itself. His neural pathways started to decode the complex communication method in real time, creating new cognitive bridges that shouldn't have been possible. Impossible, Krell muttered, his translucent form rippling with confusion. The telepathic scan was transforming. What was meant to be a one-way information extraction became a mutual exploration. Marcus wasn't just receiving information. He was actively engaging with it, restructuring his own neural networks to understand the alien communication method. Captain Zara leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes tracking every microscopic change in the human's brain activity. The Lumina communication method relied on pure information transfer, a clinical, efficient process that stripped away emotional context. Humans, it seemed, approached communication differently. Marcus's mind was treating the telepathic probe as a complex language to be learned, not a threat to be avoided. New neural pathways began to form at an impossible rate. The human brain was literally rewiring itself, creating cognitive bridges between two fundamentally different ways of thinking. Where the Lumina saw information as a static commodity, Marcus's mind saw it as a dynamic, interactive system. Neural plasticity beyond anything in our records, Krell reported, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and growing unease. Marcus began to push back, not with resistance, but with curiosity. His mind started to send complex cognitive patterns back through the telepathic link. Memories, emotions, conceptual frameworks that the Lumina had never encountered before began to flow in the opposite direction. The isolation chamber felt alive with mental energy. Cultural memories surfaced. The human capacity for adaptation. Generations of survival against impossible odds. The ability to find opportunity in the most challenging circumstances. Each memory was a testament to human resilience. Krell's sensors went into overdrive. The telepathic probe was no longer a controlled experiment. It had become a conversation, a mutual exploration of consciousness. "We're receiving unprecedented cognitive data," he reported to Captain Zara. "The human is not just surviving the neural scan. He's learning from it." Marcus's mind continued its remarkable performance. Complex mathematical theorems intertwined with emotional memories. Scientific observations merged with artistic expressions. The human cognitive landscape was nothing like the structured, predictable mental frameworks the Lumina were accustomed to. 30 minutes into the experiment, something extraordinary happened. Marcus began to teach. His mind started to construct neural bridges that could help the Lumina understand human cognitive processes. It was as if he was turning the invasive scan into a learning opportunity, transforming a potential psychological attack into a method of cross-species communication. When the session concluded, Marcus emerged with a slight smile. The Lumina researchers looked shaken. "Fascinating," was all he said. Captain Zara realized they had just witnessed something revolutionary. Humans didn't just survive challenges, they transformed them. What was meant to be a psychological probe had become a profound lesson in the nature of consciousness itself. The universe, it seemed, was about to learn something entirely new about the potential of the human mind. The quantum computing lab looked nothing like a traditional research facility. Walls shifted with holographic data streams, and at the center of the room stood 6 researchers connected to an experimental neural network that defied every known principle of technological integration. Dr. Elena Rodriguez supervised the final preparation stages. This wasn't just another research project. It was a fundamental reimagining of the relationship between human biology and technological systems. Each researcher wore a custom-designed neural interface that went far beyond traditional brain-computer connections. Microscopic quantum processors were being integrated directly into their nervous systems, creating a living, breathing computational network that blurred the lines between human and machine. The Galactic Network's monitoring systems had been tracking the project for months. Every previous attempt at neural technological integration had failed catastrophically. Biological systems simply couldn't maintain the complex quantum connections required for advanced computational processing. Humans, as always, were about to prove them wrong. The first test subject, Dr. James Chen, took a deep breath. His neural pathways were already modified to handle increased computational load, a result of years of specialized conditioning. Microscopic quantum processors began to sync with his neural networks. Most biological systems would have collapsed instantly. The quantum entanglement required to maintain such a connection would typically destroy organic neural structures within milliseconds. But the human brain was anything but typical. James's neural pathways began to adapt. Holographic displays erupted with complex data streams. Quantum computational algorithms that would have taken traditional supercomputers decades to process were being generated in real time. But this wasn't just computation. This was a true merger of biological intelligence and quantum processing. Quantum stability at 87%, a computer voice announced. The other researchers monitored the process, each of them potential candidates for the next stage of the experiment. They weren't just observers. They were evolutionaries, pushing the boundaries of human potential. Dr. Rodriguez watched as James's brain began to do something unprecedented. It wasn't just processing quantum information. It was learning the quantum computational language. Neural pathways were restructuring themselves to understand and manipulate quantum states that should have been beyond any biological comprehension. The Galactic Research Council's intercepted files would never capture the true nature of what was happening. This wasn't just a technological experiment. It was a live demonstration of human adaptability. Quantum processors integrated deeper. James's cognitive abilities expanded exponentially. Complex mathematical models, astronomical simulations, and interdimensional computational theories began to form in his mind. The barrier between biological intelligence and computational power was dissolving. Neural plasticity beyond projected maximums, reported the lead monitoring system. The room hummed with potential. Each researcher was becoming a living quantum computer, their brains creating computational pathways that defied traditional understanding of biological limitations. Dr. Rodriguez approached the primary monitoring station. The data was remarkable. Not only were the researchers maintaining quantum connections, but they were actively improving the interface. Their brains were optimizing the quantum processors, creating more efficient computational methods in real time. Most species would have required generations of careful engineering to achieve such a breakthrough. Humans were doing it in a single experimental session. As the test progressed, something extraordinary happened. The researchers began to communicate through the quantum network, sharing computational insights through a method that was neither technological transmission nor biological communication. It was something entirely new. Quantum network stability increasing, the system reported. James looked up, his eyes reflecting complex holographic data streams. He was no longer just a researcher. He was a living interface, a bridge between biological potential and technological innovation. The other researchers showed similar transformations. Their neural pathways were expanding, creating computational abilities that went far beyond traditional understanding of human intelligence. When the session concluded, the 6 researchers stood connected yet individual. They had just demonstrated a fundamental truth about human potential. Limitations were not barriers. They were invitations to evolve. Outside the lab, the world continued its routine rotation. Unaware that inside this facility, humanity was rewriting the rules of intelligence itself. Dr. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. This was just the beginning. The first wave of galactic network ships descended on Earth like a storm of crystalline daggers. Hundreds of vessels spanning multiple light years, each equipped with technologies that had subjugated countless civilizations. Their intelligence suggested a swift, decisive victory against a seemingly primitive species. They were catastrophically wrong. Major Sarah Collins stood on the command deck of the Adaptive Response Center, her neural interface humming with real-time tactical information. Around her, a team of specialists monitored global defense systems that were anything but traditional. The alien fleet's initial assault targeted major population centers. Massive energy weapons capable of vaporizing entire city blocks prepared to fire. Standard military doctrine would suggest evacuation, defensive positioning, a desperate attempt to minimize casualties. Humans did something else entirely. Metabolic adaptation sequence initiated, a computer voice announced. The soldiers in the first response teams began to change. Their bodies were not just preparing for combat, they were actively restructuring themselves to meet the specific environmental challenges of the incoming attack. Cellular structures realigned. Radiation-resistant proteins began to generate. Metabolic rates adjusted to provide enhanced oxygen utilization and rapid healing capabilities. What should have been a moment of terror became a calculated biological response. The first energy weapons fired. Where any other species would have been instantly vaporized, the human defenders absorbed the initial strike. Their modified biology created localized energy dispersion fields, turning what should have been a fatal attack into a mere inconvenience. Captain Zara of the Lumina observation ship watched in growing horror. The human response defied every military strategy in the Galactic Network's extensive database. Individual soldiers weren't just fighting. They were conducting a live experiment in survival. Each attack became an opportunity to study and adapt. Alien weapon signatures were immediately analyzed, and biological defenses were generated in real time. Computational adaptation rate at 276%. The tactical system reported. The Galactic Network fleet found itself facing an impossible opponent. Their most advanced weapons were being rendered ineffective almost instantly. Targeting systems couldn't maintain a lock on defenders who were constantly changing at a cellular level. A squad of human defenders moved through a radiation zone that would have killed most biological entities. Their bodies generated specialized cellular shields, converting dangerous radiation into additional energy sources. What should have been a kill zone became a tactical advantage. Energy conversion efficiency at 92%, another system reported. The conflict wasn't just a battle. It was a comprehensive study of biological potential. Each alien weapon strike provided new data. Each defensive response pushed the boundaries of human adaptation further. Orbital defense platforms came online. But these were nothing like traditional weapon systems. They were living, adaptive networks that could modify their computational and defensive capabilities in milliseconds. Quantum processors integrated with human tactical experts created a defense grid that was more of an organic intelligence than a static system. Major Collins coordinated the global response. Her neural interface allowed her to process tactical information at speeds that would have overwhelmed any other species' command structure. Multiple attack scenarios were analyzed, countered, and neutralized before they could even be fully implemented. The Galactic Network Command realized they were facing something unprecedented. This wasn't a military engagement. This was a species-wide demonstration of evolutionary potential. Alien ships found their most advanced technological advantages neutralized. Stealth systems were rendered ineffective as human defenders developed cellular camouflage techniques. Electronic warfare became useless against neural networks that could adapt faster than the attack could be initiated. Tactical adaptation complete, the system announced. What had begun as an invasion became a comprehensive lesson in human potential. The Galactic network wasn't just failing to conquer Earth. They were witnessing a fundamental reimagining of biological warfare. As the first wave of attacks concluded, the human defenders stood ready, not as victims, not as survivors, but as living proof that limitation was nothing more than an invitation to evolve. Captain Zara's final report was succinct. Invasion unsuccessful. Recommendation: immediate reassessment of human capabilities. The universe had just learned a critical lesson about humanity's true potential. The research facility stood as a testament to human ingenuity, nestled deep within a mountain range that seemed to both conceal and protect humanity's most advanced project. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through corridors that pulsed with a living energy, where the boundary between technology and biology had become impossibly thin. Project Chrysalis represented the culmination of decades of research into human adaptability. It was more than a scientific endeavor. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be human. A single combat unit stood ready for the most comprehensive test of biological adaptation ever attempted. 6 individuals, each connected through advanced neural interfaces, prepared to demonstrate a capability that would redefine military science forever. Initiate environmental simulation, Dr. Rodriguez commanded. The testing chamber transformed. In moments, the environment cycled through impossible conditions. Extreme heat gave way to Arctic cold. Atmospheric pressure fluctuated wildly. Radiation levels spiked and dropped. Any traditional biological system would have been destroyed instantly. The combat unit remained perfectly still. Microscopic sensors embedded throughout their bodies began to map the environmental challenges. But this was far more than simple monitoring. Their biological systems were actively preparing to respond, to transform, to become whatever the environment demanded. The first dramatic shift occurred within seconds. Cellular structures began to reconfigure. Metabolic rates adjusted with impossible speed. Specialized proteins generated to counter radiation. Muscle density increased to withstand gravitational stress. Respiratory systems modified to extract oxygen from environments that should have been unbreathable. Adaptive response at 94% efficiency, the monitoring system reported. Each team member became a living testament to human potential. Their bodies were no longer fixed biological entities. They were dynamic systems, capable of radical transformation in real time. One team member's skin developed specialized chromatic abilities, shifting to perfectly match the surrounding environment. Another generated internal radiation conversion mechanisms that turned deadly energy into additional metabolic fuel. A third developed respiratory modifications that allowed breathing in atmospheres completely toxic to other life forms. The Galactic Research Council's intercepted files could never capture the true nature of what was happening. This wasn't just a military adaptation technique. It was evolution made visible. The environmental simulation intensified. Conditions that would have killed most species multiple times over became mere challenges to be overcome. The combat unit didn't just survive. They thrived. Gravitational stress that should have crushed bone became an opportunity for structural reinforcement. Extreme temperatures became a chance for metabolic optimization. Toxic atmospheres transformed into alternative breathing mechanisms. Complete environmental adaptation achieved, the system announced. Dr. Rodriguez watched the data streams with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound respect. Each team member was becoming something more than human. They were living proof that biological limitations were nothing more than temporary suggestions. The neural interfaces between team members began to show something unprecedented. They weren't just communicating. They were sharing adaptive strategies in real time. One member's biological solution to a specific environmental challenge was instantly analyzed and partially integrated by the others. A collective intelligence emerged, not through technological means, but through a biological network more complex than any computer system could comprehend. The final test pushed the boundaries of possibility. The chamber simulated multiple planetary environments simultaneously. Extreme conditions that should have been mutually exclusive were combined into a single impossible scenario. The combat unit's response was nothing short of miraculous. Their bodies became living adaptive systems, cellular structures that could shift between solid, liquid, and gaseous states, sensory mechanisms that could perceive across electromagnetic spectrums far beyond traditional biological limitations, metabolic systems that could generate energy from conditions that should have been completely hostile to life. When the simulation concluded, the 6 individuals stood transformed. They were no longer simply soldiers or researchers. They were living proof of humanity's ultimate potential. Dr. Rodriguez's final report was succinct. Adaptive capabilities exceed all previous projections. Limitation is now a choice, not a constraint. Outside the facility, the world continued its routine rotation. Unaware that inside these walls, humanity had just rewritten the fundamental rules of biological potential. The universe was about to learn that humans were not just a species. They were a living, evolving possibility. The diplomatic chamber floated in neutral space, a crystalline structure designed to facilitate communication between vastly different civilizations. Captain Zara of the Lumina delegation stood across from Dr. Marcus Chen, representing humanity's first official philosophical exchange with the Galactic Confederation. Holographic interfaces shimmered around them, translation systems working overtime to bridge the vast cognitive gaps between species. This was more than a diplomatic meeting. It was a profound exploration of fundamental differences in understanding existence itself. Your species views limitation as an invitation. Captain Zara began, her multifaceted eyes reflecting complex emotional patterns. We do not comprehend this perspective. Dr. Chen smiled, a gesture that the alien delegation found simultaneously unsettling and intriguing. Limitation is not a barrier, he responded. It is an opportunity for transformation. The Lumina representatives struggled to process this concept. Their civilization had spent millennia carefully optimizing their biological and technological systems. Incremental improvement was their hallmark. Humans seemed to view every challenge as a chance for radical reimagining. Holographic displays began to show humanity's evolutionary journey. Each image demonstrated a fundamental truth. Humans did not wait for evolution. They drove it. From the first stone tools to neural quantum interfaces, they had consistently transformed their own potential. You modify your environment. One Lumina researcher interjected. We adapt to our environment. Dr. Chen's response was revelatory. Those are the same thing, just different perspectives of interaction. The diplomatic team watched as human historical records demonstrated their unique approach. Medical challenges became opportunities for biological enhancement. Technological limitations became invitations for radical innovation. Environmental constraints were transformed into chances for adaptation. A vivid hologram showed human responses to seemingly impossible challenges, a medical breakthrough that transformed genetic disorders into adaptive capabilities. Technological interfaces that merged human consciousness with computational systems. Ecological adaptations that turned hostile environments into livable spaces. Pain is not an endpoint, Dr. Chen explained. It is a pathway to growth. The Lumina delegation found this concept fundamentally alien. Their civilization valued stability, careful progression, minimal risk. Humans seemed to view risk as the primary mechanism for advancement. Another holographic display showed human medical history. Where other species would have seen devastating genetic conditions, humans saw opportunities for transformation. Disabilities became chances for technological and biological innovation. Limitations were treated as puzzles to be solved, not immutable conditions to be accepted. Your approach is chaotic, Captain Zora observed. Our approach is dynamic, Dr. Chen corrected. The philosophical exchange revealed a profound truth. The Galactic Confederation saw the universe as a system to be understood and carefully navigated. Humans saw the universe as a canvas for continuous transformation. Genetic records showed how humans approached their own biology. Each generation was not just a continuation, but a potential revolution. Technological and biological boundaries were constantly challenged, constantly pushed. "We do not wait to be evolved," Dr. Chen said. "We choose to evolve." The Lumina researchers struggled to comprehend this perspective. Evolution, to them, was a slow, careful process. To humans, it was an active choice, a continuous decision to push beyond current limitations. Holographic simulations began to show human potential. Quantum neural interfaces that transformed computational understanding. Biological adaptations that allowed survival in impossible environments. Technological innovations that emerged from treating challenges as opportunities. "Your civilization is a living experiment," Captain Zara observed. "Existence is a living experiment," Dr. Chen responded. As the diplomatic exchange concluded, both sides recognized something profound. This was not a meeting between two civilizations. This was a collision of fundamental philosophical perspectives about the nature of potential itself. The Lumina delegation left with more questions than answers. Humanity was not just a species. It was a continuous process of transformation, a living demonstration that limitation was nothing more than an invitation to grow. Outside the diplomatic chamber, the universe continued its silent rotation, unaware that a fundamental philosophical revolution had just occurred. The observation deck of the Galactic Confederation's central hub hummed with an unprecedented energy. Where once stood a millennia-old system of careful, incremental progress, now something entirely new was taking shape. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic display that mapped humanity's ongoing transformation. The other species watched, part fascinated, part terrified, as humans continued to redefine the very concept of potential. 5 years had passed since the first contact conflict. The universe had changed more in those 5 years than in the previous 5,000. Confederation research teams now worked alongside human specialists in ways no one could have predicted. Where traditional scientific collaboration meant careful, measured exchanges, humans turned every interaction into a living experiment of possibility. A joint research project demonstrated the new galactic dynamic. Lumina quantum theorists worked with human neural specialists to develop communication technologies that merged biological and computational systems. What should have taken centuries was being developed in months. Quantum neural interface stability at 96%, a system announced. Captain Zara, now a primary liaison between humanity and the Galactic Confederation, watched the progress with a mixture of scientific excitement and philosophical wonder. The humans had done more than join the galactic community. They had fundamentally transformed it. Technological exchanges became living demonstrations of human potential. A medical breakthrough that allowed cellular regeneration was not just shared, it was actively developed in real time, with researchers modifying their own bodies as part of the research process. Environmental restoration projects showed a similar approach. Where other species would develop careful, incremental solutions, humans treated planetary rehabilitation as a dynamic living process. Ecosystems were not just restored, they were reimagined. A holographic display showed a previously uninhabitable planet being transformed. Specialized human-developed organisms worked in complex symbiosis, turning toxic environments into thriving ecosystems. Each challenge was an opportunity for radical innovation. Planetary adaptation rate exceeding all projections, the system reported. The Galactic Confederation's oldest members struggled to comprehend the scale of change. Humanity was not just a new member of the galactic community. They were a transformative force that challenged every existing understanding of biological and technological potential. Diplomatic missions became living experiments in cross-species communication. Where traditional approaches would involve careful, measured exchanges, humans treated each interaction as a chance for mutual transformation. Dr. Rodriguez oversaw a program that was rewriting the fundamental understanding of species interaction. Neural interfaces allowed for unprecedented levels of cross-species communication. Biological and technological barriers were dissolving in real time. "We do not conquer," she explained to a gathering of galactic representatives. "We transform." The statement captured the essence of humanity's approach. Every challenge was an invitation. Every limitation was an opportunity. Evolution was not a passive process, but an active choice. Technological development accelerated at an impossible rate. Quantum computing systems that merged human neural potential with computational capabilities began to solve problems that had been considered unsolvable for millennia. Captain Zara's final report to the Galactic Confederation was both a warning and a celebration. Humanity was not just a new species in the galactic community. They were a fundamental reimagining of what potential could mean. The observation deck fell silent as a new holographic display showed humanity's ongoing transformation. Neural networks that could adapt in real time. Biological systems that could modify themselves instantaneously. Technological interfaces that blurred the line between organic and computational intelligence. Outside the observation deck, the universe continued its rotation. But everything had changed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked out at the vast, stellar landscape. Humanity's journey was just beginning. Every moment was an invitation to something more. The universe would never be the same, and humanity was just getting started.